Hi, this is Randal Schwartz, host of Floss Weekly. This week, Aaron Newcomb joins me to talk about Open Wonderland, a 3D immersive environment, kind of like Second Life, but you can get real work done in it. Stay tuned.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Floss Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Floss Weekly with Randal Schwartz and Aaron Newcomb, episode 123 for June 9th, 2010, Open Wonderland. It's time for Floss Weekly, the weekly show about free, libre, open source software. I am your host, Randal Schwartz. That'd be Merlin at Stonehenge.com if you want to email me, or if you just want to annoy me with spam. That's actually where to send it all. So I'm hosting the show every week now. Main host, Leo Laporte, is off in better pastures, I guess. Well, he'll be back occasionally. He said he's going to come back occasionally. But this week we have a co-host who you heard just a few weeks ago and has actually been on this show a couple of times, none other than the wonderful, famous, infamous pair even, Aaron Newcomb. Hello, Aaron.
Hey, who needs Leo when you've got me, right?
Indeed, indeed. I mean, this is like, you know, we have the multiple Aarons and the Randal and the Randy and the oh man, the co-host thing is just, it's been a lot of fun actually. And I really appreciate you again taking time out of your schedule to come back on the show again and co-host with me for this week.
Oh yeah, no problem. I'm flattered to be included with all the great other co-hosts you've had.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, well, you're doing a great job. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come back. That's the way it works. I also just want to say before we get started with the show that I want to give special thanks to my current primary client, Oversea.net. They're giving me a office space here and plenty of bandwidth on the 43rd floor of the 9th tallest building in LA. Got a beautiful view of Pasadena, although it's a hazy day out here today in LA. I also want to say, since I wear so many hats, and I don't often get a chance now, since Leo doesn't ask me about all the other things I do, I don't often get a chance to talk about some of the things I do. So I just wanted to bring up this time, because Michael Dexter pushed me in the side, I am also on the board of Linux Fund, the nonprofit organization that raises money primarily through credit card affinity fees to fund open source projects. And I've just been told that now we have cards in the US, which we've had for a while, the business card in the UK. So if you're a businessman in the UK, you can get cards now. And also now, just recently opened up in Canada. So if you're if you're in Canada, we're back there as well. We had to stop for a while while we changed banks. So if you go to linuxfund.org/cards, you can find out about these cards. And I tell you, you just use it like a normal credit card, and you know, a small percentage of every transaction, without affecting you or affecting the vendor, goes to fund us so that we can fund really cool open source projects. So that's pretty slick. I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of that. I know we talked about this 16 shows ago, so time to bring it up again. Aaron, you want to hear who we got on today?
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait.
Very good, very good. Well, this is someone you may have actually bumped into because she was formerly at Sun, now on an independent project. Her name is Nicole. I got to get this right here. Nicole Yankelovich. She is the executive director of the Open Wonderland Foundation. Now, Wonderland, as far as I can tell, Open Wonderland, as I'm staring at the website here, is a 3D immersive environment. It's a series of Java programs, Java server, Java clients, to allow you to kind of like a Second Life or kind of like, like these multiple online games like World of Warcraft, where you're actually in the world. Have you played with Wonderland at all?
Only when I was at Sun, I played with it a little bit. I think it used to be called Project Darkstar. We'll have to ask Nicole about that and see what the history of the project is. So I played with it a little bit. I certainly played with Second Life as well. So this should be really interesting.
Very good, very good. So let's go ahead and get Nicole on the line. Hello, Nicole. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, actually. Where are we speaking to you from?
I'm coming from Weston, Massachusetts, just outside Boston.
All the way across the country from me. I'm over in LA right now. So it sounds like we're right next to each other. Isn't it amazing what technology can do sometimes?
It is amazing.
And actually, this is really appropriate that we talk about this because part of what the technology of Open Wonderland is. I got into Open Wonderland just a bit in the opening of the show, but part of the technology of Open Wonderland, of course, is to bring people together in this kind of a situation where I'd be on my headset somewhere, you'd be on your headset somewhere. But what's different between, say, a Skype call and Open Wonderland? What's Open Wonderland about?
Well, there are quite a few things that are different. We have a great audio experience in Open Wonderland. So it's similar to Skype, except it's more immersive. You can hear people around you, so you can tell where the voices are coming from. But probably the more important thing is that on a Skype call, you can only have one conversation. In a virtual world, you can have multiple simultaneous conversations. So the two of us can be chatting while two other people can be chatting nearby us, and our conversations can naturally divide and converge.
So rather than me having to start a Skype chat with, say, 4 people, which is possible, and then have to actually terminate the call or cut people off in order to have them go away, people can sort of individually join in and out of the conversation just as they would in real life.
Exactly. And that's, conceptually, people say that there's a big learning curve for virtual worlds, but in fact, I've found that from a conceptual point of view, people find it easier to understand because it uses the real world model.
So let's back up here. So Open Wonderland is an environment where I have an avatar, which I can either look like me or not look like me, or look like a 12-foot-tall blue person, right? And I'm walking around in this virtual world, movements controlled by keys or the mouse or something.
Yep, both.
And then I'm going into some space, and there are other people there in real time.
That's right. Yeah, it's a real-time collaboration environment. And actually in Wonderland, people usually aren't, they usually do look like people. One of the things that we focused on is having this be a collaboration environment that's suitable for business and education, where people tend to be their real identities. And it, particularly in the business setting, you want to use this as a bridge for people to get to know each other in real life. So we have we use Evolver avatars. People can go to evolver.com, which is a great website for creating avatars. You can upload your picture, and if you would like to look like yourself, you can, or you can make an avatar that either uses their tools or our tools.
That's one of the things I remember from Second Life. I was always trying to get the Second Life character to look a lot like me, and it does look almost exactly like me, which is sort of scary. So now, and since I brought up Second Life, this would be similar to Second Life then for people that have seen that, right?
Yes, and in many ways it's very similar. I think our design center is different. We designed this specifically as a collaboration tool in which people could do their real work, whether that be teaching and learning or business collaboration. But in terms of having a character that moves around in a space, it's similar in that respect, yes.
Can you fly? Can you go vertical?
Sure.
So there's not the physics restrictions. I presume by default the physics restrictions are there, though. You walk on a plane somewhere.
That's right. That's right. And your avatar follows the ground. And when you collide with things, you do. So yes, we have some basic physics. And but in a virtual world, you don't have to stick to the rules of physics. And one thing that's quite different about Wonderland is that if you wanted to have a world that had completely different physics, you're free to do that, because both the client and the server are open source. And so developers can make any kind of extension that they want.
One of the things before we get too far that I'd like to understand is the background of the project. Like, how did the project get started? And
okay.
I know a little bit about it just because of my background at Sun, but maybe you could explain a little bit of the background of the project, how it got started and where it stands today.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. So my team was at Sun Microsystems up until January of this year, and it was started actually by a challenge from our vice president for eco-responsibility at the time, and he put out a challenge to the engineering community and said, let's build our next building in the virtual world. And so my team put together a little reading group and started exploring, and like actually many other people, we started exploring Second Life, and we built a little conference room in Second Life, and the guy in my team who was responsible for doing that building was a work-from-home employee, and he'd been working from home for about 7 or 8 years at the time. And we had invited everybody from the reading group to come in and check out how the building was going. And it was a real telling moment for us, because he said it was the first time in his 7 years of working from home that he'd ever had a serendipitous encounter with another Sun employee. And that really was pivotal for us in terms of our thinking about this technology and what it could do, particularly for home-based employees. And so but there were things at the time, this was in 2007 when we started the project, about Second Life that we felt weren't appropriate for enterprise use. And so we decided, we sort of did the exercise, well, if we built our own system, what would it look like? And then we teamed up with another group at Sun who had some graphics expertise. The team that I was leading at the time was a research team in Sun Labs called Collaborative Environments. So we had been focusing on collaboration technology and had done quite a few studies of distributed meetings and distributed teams over the years. So we had a pretty good idea of where the current technology was failing people, and tried to address those issues in this project.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I always use as an example when I talk to people about the different types of contributions that Sun made now that Sun is gone. That may have not really went anywhere commercially too much, but really was a big contribution, something that came out of the lab, something that someone said, just like you said, let's go work on this. Let's go see what we can do. I have a need, very much in the tradition of open source software. I've got an itch, I've got to scratch it. Let's just go do it. And Sun would throw resources at it. I think there's a lot of things like that. I just wanted to point out, this is one of the projects that I always point out as one of those things that Sun did that was really, really great. Maybe wasn't as commercially successful as people would have liked, but it was a great project nonetheless, and it continues on in Open Wonderland. I think it's great.
Well, it was, I think, a great decision to start the project as open source. I never want to do another project not open source. It's been a fabulous experience. And, it allowed my team to be able to, after leaving Sun, to be able to continue working on it. And, I think it may not be a commercial success yet, but I still have hope that it will be. We're really only, we haven't even reached a 0.5 release yet, so the software is still quite early on in its development cycle.
So I just wanted to highlight something that you said a moment ago. You talked about how this was sort of like part of the need of this because you had virtual employees. I mean they're real employees, but they're like working
right.
from home.
We like to say yes. We don't like to call our employees virtual. Distributed employees.
Sorry, so the idea now is that I know that a lot of organizations, a lot of institutions, educational things are now becoming much more distributed because of trying to be green, working from home, that kind of stuff. So do you see this as being something that's, say, a small office of distributed, like maybe a team working on a website or something would use this space then to collaborate to create whatever it is they're building?
Well, absolutely. I mean, our team is living it now. We're completely distributed, running a small consulting company, and we use the technology. That's the only thing that we use to meet and to collaborate and to brainstorm. So it's and what was kind of nice is we barely even skipped a beat. I miss going into the office and having lunch with people, but in fact, pretty much none of my team members were co-located with me while I was working on the project. So we just have sort of continued our work in the virtual world. And people always ask me, well, where's your office? I'm like, well, our office is in the virtual world. It's
128.92. No,
exactly.
Now I'm worried. What's the basic workflow though here? I mean, so I jump into my avatar suit and I go into this space and I'm staring at big squares in the sky that represent what, websites and apps?
No, the thing that's nice about a virtual space is that the space is persistent. So if you have a brainstorming session, like we have a whiteboard, a multi-user whiteboard, we have sticky notes, and you can drag and drop images in. So we were brainstorming about our logo design, and we could bring in examples of logos that we liked and design elements that we liked. You just drag and drop those in, and we have a concept called a container. So if you're standing on a platform, you have all that brainstorming content, you could just move that whole platform with all the content, you move it out of the way, but it stays there in the environment. So if we want to go back and see what we've done, we just, sort of walk over or teleport over to where our brainstorming materials were to look back and review it. So you can, with a virtual team room, your work product accumulates, and you can do your real work. We can run Open Office inside the world. We can run Firefox. We can run NetBeans. Actually, for our community meetings, we have weekly community meetings where we run NetBeans and review code and do that right in the world to help bring developers up to speed.
Can you share your desktop directly into there?
You can, using it was actually in our old version, and we're just finishing porting it to the new version, but you can run VNC session, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so typically, I mean, some people, that's useful to do, but people tend to like to use the individual applications, because then you can spread them out.
Yeah, now the one downside of real-time collaboration is that it's real-time. And I know that's I think you know where I'm going with this, which is, okay, so now all of a sudden, instead of collaborating by email, where I can, you can be on, a UK time zone and I can be on a US time zone, we can still overlap quite a bit.
Right.
How do you think this, is there provisions in this for like maybe recording what happens so other people can play it back and get caught up, or how
Absolutely.
would that sort of thing?
Right. As you say, it's real time, but again, the persistent nature of it allows people who come in at different times to sort of see the work product and what's changed since the last time they were in the space. It's not a substitute for email, and we use Google Docs, and we use all kinds of other collaboration tools. So this is just one tool in an arsenal of collaboration tools. Happens to be particularly good for the real-time piece. But again, the persistence allows you to, to go in. You can prepare things for the next meeting. You can review what was there from the previous meeting. So it's a balancing act, and you have to pick the set of tools that you need for your particular project.
Is this easy enough to set up and use that like you wouldn't bring somebody in on IRC now? I mean, when's the last time you opened up an IRC window?
Actually, we use IRC quite a bit. We often use IRC. Part of it is because we're developing the software as well as using it. And when you're developing it, you tend to have to bring the server up and down. So we use IRC to say, okay, server's back up, everybody can hop back into the world. But I think that's maybe an anomaly, from the developer point of view. If you're just a user, you wouldn't be doing that.
Right. So I'm gonna take a risk that Randal's not gonna fire me, because I'm gonna ask one of his questions now. What does your development process look like? I mean, I think I read you guys code mostly in Java, which makes sense.
100% Java, yes.
Yeah. So what does the development process look like, and how many developers are there involved, and how often do you cycle code, things like that?
Yep. Well, our process is changing a little bit, because we've gone from being a corporate-sponsored open source project where we had a team of people whose job it was to do this. And pretty much, up until January when we were at Sun, it was the Sun employees who, were writing all the core code. And now, as we're transitioning to a completely community-based project, we've been having these developer meetings to help get other developers who were writing extensions, what we call modules, more up to speed on the core. So, and we've started to have some people submitting patches. It's kind of a slow process because it's quite a complex system. So it's taking a little bit of time getting people up to speed. So we still have that, the sort of core of former Sun folks who are doing most of the development, but we're really trying to get away from that model and get more people involved in the core. But the core of Wonderland is actually fairly small. And most people who are doing Wonderland development are not touching the core. They're building applications. They're building either 2D or 3D applications that can run inside the world, or they're building custom worlds. And all of that can be done using our module system.
That's just what I was going to ask next. Can you just, it sounds like a very modular environment. Can you describe how that works?
Sure. So, as I said, the core is small, and you can, we have a number of different points of extension of the system. Now, the whole thing is open source. You could obviously change anything you want, but the typical things that people do are they add a new application. So to give you some examples of that, the sticky notes I mentioned, somebody in the community contributed those. Somebody just contributed a poster application. So you could drop a poster in the world, and then you have a little text editor where you can put in either plain text or HTML and make a poster out of it very easily. Somebody created a chemistry module where you actually run through, it's a combination of 2D and 3D. There's a 2D user interface that leads you through an experiment, and which you're interacting with this 3D model to do the chemistry experiment, and then there's some output in a 2D window to show you the results. So there's that kind of thing you can do. You can also add a capability to the system. So in Wonderland, you can apply functionality to any object. So for example, somebody added a place mark capability. So you can make any object into a place mark. So when I was talking about that brainstorming pad, you can add a place mark to it and then move your pad off, up into the sky or something. But then people can just use, like a bookmark. They go to the menu and you can hop up to your brainstorming pad easily. We've done a lot with audio. So we have audio capability that you can apply, add audio to any object. You can make any object a cone of silence, for example, so that you can make a soundproof area. And that's really handy for building virtual worlds in which you have multiple things going on. So you can, you can have people, like go into a music listening booth, or you could have people giving lots of demos at the same time, and each demo area can be made soundproof.
Wow, so it really sounds like this is completely full-featured. I guess I didn't realize the extent of it, but it sounds like you've done a lot of work.
Yep,
a lot of people have contributed. Yeah.
So a lot of the contributions that people in the community have made are these extensions, so the apps or the capabilities. You can also add things to the menus. That's the third sort of easy point of extension. And then, people can do anything else they want, but those are sort of the three where there are nice, clean APIs defined, and and we also have a framework for the 2D applications to make it easy for Java developers to build Java applications that run in the world that are multi-user. So we have two different kinds of applications. There are the X11 applications, the ones that run on a Linux system like OpenOffice and Firefox and NetBeans. Those are by nature single-user applications. And you can share them, but one person can have control at a time and you pass control. But we prefer that people use the multi-user Java applications. Those are built with multiple users in mind. So in a multi-user environment, you get a better user experience, and you also get better performance because we can run the application on each client, and then our framework helps you send the networking type messages back and forth that you need. Sort of the hard part of coding a multi-user app is the multi-user, the networking piece of it.
Exactly. Now, real quickly, how has this been applied? I mean, maybe give us some examples of how people have taken the code and used it. Or I know that you did a talk recently about using this in a medical applications environment, right? Maybe just talk just real briefly about how the project has been used and what it's been used for outside of the core.
Okay. Well, you mentioned healthcare, so I'll start there. So there's one group, Birmingham City University in the UK. They're using Open Wonderland for communications training for medical personnel. And I really like one of the features that we have is that we integrate with the real telephone system. And so they're teaching, in this particular instance, nurses how to communicate with doctors. And one of the things that the nurses have to do is call up the doctor and get them to come in for a consultation. So they actually do that in the virtual world. They place a phone call to a real doctor, and they try to convince them to come into the virtual world to do a consultation as part of their final project. So I thought that was really kind of clever. We have people who are doing simulations of various sorts. So, for example, there's a group in Spain that's doing simulations of, like, traffic accidents and rescuing people from cars and then bringing them into the ambulance and into the emergency room and how that whole process works. And they do it live in their facility, but then they are wanted to use Open Wonderland for people to review those live sessions and play out different scenarios. How could they have done it better? So you can really see it in the context of the street, the ambulance, the emergency room, the triage space, and so forth. So
this
training
sounds like a lot of. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there are many applications involving training. We've had somebody do aircraft maintenance training where you can actually run the aircraft simulator in the environment and then have the 3D model of the aircraft and see what happens, when you do things in the simulator, how that affects the 3D model.
This sounds like a lot of stuff going on already for something that's only at version 0.5. Are these just pilot projects, or is that production? It sounds like it's in production already.
Well, many of them are pilot projects or small production. Like there's something called the Shanghai Lecture Series that's out of the University of Zurich, and they are doing sort of this artificial intelligence lecture series where they're playing videos in the world as part of the course, and they have students in China and Europe who participate in these, and that is a production setting. We have a number of people like at Essex and St. Paul College. They have what's called our mixed reality teaching and learning environment, Myrtle, set up where they're using webcam video. So the setup is that you have a big screen in the back of a live classroom with a webcam, and then you have some students participating in the classroom in the virtual world and some in the live classroom. And that's there are a couple of those production environments, but many people are experimenting, or they're building the worlds right now, which they're going to put in production. At University of Missouri, there's a big project there called iSocial to build a virtual world to help teach communication skills to children with autism spectrum disorder. So that's another healthcare application. A group of students in Canada undergraduate students did a great project where they integrated a Wiimote on a bicycle. And also the bicycle wheel had a sunspot sensor. And then they built a game, and this was for children with cerebral palsy. And they had to pedal the bicycle. They used the Wiimote controller to steer the avatar. And the pedaling it controls the speed of the avatar. And the students wrote a game, and they had to go around the world, collecting things and playing the game while pedaling and steering the bicycle.
Well, given the variety of projects you just mentioned, it must be fairly simple to get started, or either you just know how to deal with really brilliant people everywhere.
No, I think, there's a number of computer science departments that, have found this pretty motivating, because we really focused on trying to make the programming environment familiar for Java developers. Mm-hmm. And yes, you do have to learn something about 3D, but everything else should be fairly familiar. Any of the 2D components, they're all programmed with Java Swing. And there are a lot of Java programmers out there and a lot of computer science courses that are teaching Java programming. So to write a small module in Wonderland, we have some really good tutorials to get people started. And we also have an unbelievable community on our forum that, helps people get up and running if they get stuck. Very responsive
So right
group of
after I
people.
finish talking to you here, could I have like a simple little virtual world up and running in like 15 or 20 minutes of downloads? Or
Oh, sure. You
Really?
can set up. You can run both the server and a client or two on a, like I run it on my Mac laptop. You can. It's a binary download. If you just want to try it out, you can download the server. It's when you download the server, you start. We integrate with Glassfish web server, and once the server is started, then you get a web page. And you just click on the launch button, and the client is downloaded using Java Web Start. And we really like Java because our model is not, unlike Second Life, which is one giant virtual world, our model is much more the web server model. We envision that each organization will run their own Wonderland servers, either inside their firewall or outside, just like you do with websites, and that they'll be special purpose, just like you go to a travel planning website, a turtle tracking website, a financial planning website, whatever it is, but there's special code running on each of those, web servers. And likewise, the Wonderland servers can each be running different modules, different code, and Java, which allows the mobile code, and there's a URL field, and you can go from one server to another, just like you'd go to one web server to another. And then Java, it downloads the code that you need for that particular world.
Wow. So now, if I want to actually get in someone else's world, is there like a public list of maybe people who've opened their servers up to the outside, so I can just start playing with the client and see what it looks like?
There are a few. There aren't too many of those yet. We're hoping to bring a whole bunch of them online quite soon. We have had somebody donate some servers in order to put up some public servers. So hopefully that will be coming. There are a couple that are available right now, but most people actually just run their own servers. And one of the things that educators in particular appreciate about Wonderland is that you can run it behind your firewall, or you can run it on the open internet, but hook into various like LDAP authentication systems, so you can have the worlds are secure, and most people running Wonderland tend to run it more in that closed, secure way.
Does the name Wonderland hark back all to the old Alice project?
The Alice project at Carnegie Mellon?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it doesn't, but we actually integrate with that. So if you create an Alice animation using Alice 3, you can drag and drop that into Wonderland and sort of interact with your animation, which is really fun.
Cool. And I also understand you integrate with Google Warehouse?
Yes, the Google 3D Warehouse is just an awesome resource of hundreds of thousands of freely available 3D models. And the ones that are provided there in Google Earth format .kmz files, you can save on your desktop and then just drag and drop them into a Wonderland world. If they're not all the models are in KMZ format, some of them are in SketchUp format. You can just open those in SketchUp, which is a free 3D modeling tool that Google provides, and then convert them to KMZ and drag and drop them in.
I mean, that's what always scares me about having a 3D virtual environment is I can't draw worth beans. So I'm always trying to figure out if I was going to populate it, what would I populate it with? If you've got Google, also, what about Blender objects? Because I know the Blender has a big resource warehouse too.
Any 3D program that can export to Collada. So Collada is the Google Earth standard. The KMZ is just a zipped up Collada file that has the model plus textures. And we wrote an importer specifically for that because it's because of the number of models in the Google 3D warehouse. But we'll also import any DAE file, so any standard Collada file.
Now, some of my friends would really yell at me if I didn't compare this also to Open Croquet. How would you compare yourself to Open Croquet?
Well, Open Croquet, we know the developers on Open Croquet quite well, and they're a wonderful bunch and really talented, and they have some wonderful features. I think, one of the biggest differences is that we use Java, and their whole environment is based on Smalltalk, Squeak, that class of things. And it's a very powerful programming environment for sure, but there are many fewer developers who are familiar with that that language. I think, philosophically, our approaches are quite similar. There are some architectural differences. Theirs is more of a peer-to-peer architecture. Ours is more client-server based. So the differences along those lines, but philosophically fairly similar.
Cool. All right. And so it's not difficult for me to install. I can get this thing going. I can get my own world built up. The other thing, though, I did want to ask, though, I actually have worked with people that worked on Open Croquet, so I also that's the reason I had to ask about it.
Yeah.
One of the meetings I'm forced to attend every couple of weeks because of one of the many board associations I'm on is held inside Open Croquet. Well, it's held inside Croquet. It's held inside whatever the telesphere meeting thing is, and it always annoys me because I'm looking through a window. Yeah. But I'm looking at another window in perspective, so I'm not really seeing that window very well. And I know I can click on things to go there, but why not just have a flat 2D cooperative environment instead of all this 3D stuff?
Right. Well, we do kind of a hybrid. So for any application that you have, you can just right-click on it and bring the view up into your heads-up display, the glass pane. So you can see it in 2D. So I totally agree. I mean, I think for 2D applications, you're better off looking at them in 2D. But so if you're actually interacting with it, I think that's true. If what you're doing is being sort of immersed in the history of where your project has been, I mean, it's just like in a real team room where you have things on the walls and so forth. So the ability, you can't see that many 2D windows on your small screen at one time.
True.
So the 3D space allows you to lay them out in a way that you really can see many more things at one time. Now, obviously, you can't see them clearly and read every detail. There you want to bring it up onto your glass pane. So we just kind of try to provide for both.
Now, I also want to ask, because sometimes when I'm bored in the meeting, which happens occasionally, I just go over to the object create menu and I just start creating butterflies and stuff. So I'm wondering, have you had that kind of experience in meetings you've had?
Sure. People get carried away and like to play around. I think at least, particularly initially when people are new to it. But, we support most of the content creation is done using drag and drop, so people can drag and drop things. But also because you can do real work in the environment, I think people tend to focus a little bit more on that. And part of it is how you structure your meetings. We try to structure the meetings so that people have some things that they can do, so they stay engaged.
So let me also make sure that you had a 2D application that allowed for cooperative drawing. Is that true?
Yeah, whiteboard. Yep.
So I could be sitting here at one corner of the whiteboard. I could be sketching something, and somebody else could be sketching something else, maybe coming over and erasing mine.
Yeah, we can both draw at the same time.
That sounds like fun.
And right now, yeah, it's great. It's really nice. Everybody can draw on the whiteboard at the same time. And there's a project at Georgia Tech which is really interesting. So kind of a mixed reality where they have it so that people can draw on a physical electronic whiteboard, and imagine that whiteboard was a clear surface, and you were looking as if you were looking at people on the other side of a clear glass window. So you look into it and you see avatars looking out at you, and everybody can draw on the same surface. And sort of by trick of optic magic, everybody sees all the writing right side up. So if I write something on my side of the glass, you see it right side up.
Cool.
But we see each other.
Cool. So let me ask another question. As someone that's, obviously deeply involved in this technology, and it seems like Second Life's kind of lost a little bit of its popularity and so forth. I mean, what's the future of this technology? Do you think it'll continue to grow the way it has been? Is there going to be any major shifts that you see coming up with new technology or whatever? What's the future of this type of environment?
Yeah, well, I was involved with hypertext before the web. And to me, this period of time feels very much like that period in the 80s when we were working on hypertext systems, where there were lots of people experimenting, lots of different systems out there. The early adopters were doing some really interesting things, but there were a lot of naysayers who said, oh, this linking stuff is never going to catch on and so forth. And I really believe that, there'll probably be some shakeout in the technology, and who knows what'll actually win in the end. But I really believe that we're going to start seeing more and more 3D interactions, that when you go to places on the web, that increasingly you're going to be having more 3D experiences, because 3D is just so good for certain types of applications, particularly when you want to demonstrate anything that has physical characteristics. And where you want to do things like have gatherings of people where you can have conversations that naturally converge and divide.
Yeah, well, I just came back from a trip recently to Disney World, and I can tell you that they're all over this technology down there. I mean, since I was there last, they've included all kinds of rides and games and stuff that actually use this technology. I don't know if they're using this or their own developed source, whatever, but they're certainly finding lots of interesting ways to incorporate this technology into what they're trying to do and the entertainment value that they're trying to provide to their customers.
Yeah. I mean, the sense of immersion that you get, particularly if you have high fidelity audio, it's really, you have to experience it yourself, I think, to understand. We've put a lot of emphasis on audio in Wonderland. We believe that audio is sort of the primary. If you don't get the audio right, then the rest of it doesn't really work. And on high-speed networks, we can do up to CD quality audio. And if you've never been in an audio conference with CD quality audio, it's a whole different experience. You can understand accented speech better. You can really, feel like you are there with the people.
Well, it sounds like you've got a really interesting project here. In fact, I'm sure if Leo had been in this call, he'd be downloading and installing the server right now for the Twit family to use. In fact, I'll probably talk with him after this show to see if he's going to do that, because we've wanted some solution that sort of gave us, some way to communicate and have high-quality audio, and it sounds like this is already there. So, ready to go with that. Are you using open standards for all that? Are you using like standard,
SIP?
SIP, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
Yep. We try to use open standards in every place we possibly can. So it really uses pretty much all the standard stuff, and we bridge with, as I said, the telephone network as well, using SIP.
Can you go to an asterisk box then with that?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Oh, very cool. Well, now I know a bunch of asterisk people are going to want to come in on this as well. This would be great.
Right.
And speaking of that, if somebody wants to participate more with this, I mean, if they want to run their own server, or maybe they want to contribute back to the main project, you said you have a pretty big community. Is there like forums and stuff for that?
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, we just have one single forum. And if you just go to openwonderland.org, we have a pointer to. We have a Facebook page and a Twitter feed and a blog and forum and so forth. So pretty active community, and I have to say a really, really nice community.
And you don't need to know Java, because obviously there's 3D modeling involved. You need translators for foreign languages?
We have, Wonderland is translated, I believe, into 6 languages so far.
Wow.
We've had a number of nice contributions along that line, but always welcome more of those. We have somebody who knows quite a bit about internationalization and localization, and has a little tool that you can use to make it easier to localize the software. So that's been a great contribution. We really could use people writing more documentation. That's, I think, one of the probably every open source project.
Really, that's a standard request. Please come help us write about this. Write up how-tos, write up tutorials. Get immersed and figure out how to let the next person find out about it. That's great. That's great. I really appreciate you coming on the show today. And like I said, now I want to download this and play with this, and that's always a good sign when I've been at a show and people tell I want to go play with something again. So I appreciate taking time. Any last thing you want to tell the audience?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, and we do welcome anybody to join our open source community, and that would be great to have more participation. And don't hesitate to let me know if you have any questions or like some more information.
Very good, very good. Thank you, Nicole. Thanks for being with us.
No problem. Bye-bye.
And that was Nicole Yankelovich. She's the executive director of the Open Wonderland Foundation, the open source group that runs Open Wonderland, which is what we've just been talking about for the last 45 minutes or so. Pretty interesting, Aaron, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And she mentioned all the resources. I was just looking at their website, and it's really well laid out. They've got a module warehouse, great documentation, lots of community, Facebook pages, Twitter feeds, IRC chat channels. I mean, it's all right there. So, I mean, I would encourage anybody that wanted to get more information, definitely go out and look at the website. It's really well put together.
Very good, very good. And like I said, I'm probably going to be downloading it right after this. I have good bandwidth here, so it shouldn't be any problem. And maybe we're talking to Leo about setting up a virtual world. That'd be kind of cool for the Twit audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine there's all kinds of things you could do with it in terms of podcasting. It'd be interesting to see a podcasting show laid out in a virtual 3D environment. I think that would be really cool, especially since we're doing a lot of live TV on Twit these days.
Yeah, imagine having like a little video screen in every area that's showing a different video cast of each of the shows or something. Oh boy, okay, in the chat room I'm seeing one of the admins is saying, please, no more work for the volunteers, stop it. So, okay, sorry. Not my intention to piss these people off.
Funny.
It's well, okay, that's great.
Yeah, someone also mentioned virtual karaoke.
Oh,
Someone
yeah,
also
I know.
mentioned
Well,
virtual karaoke. Are you going to be setting that up a little bit later?
Maybe I'll have to have a virtual karaoke site where, but it's not as fun as actually irritating people in real life. That's the whole point of karaoke, is to be annoying to real people. So I don't know. But the quality of the audio is good. Why not? It sounds pretty good. Speaking of karaoke, if you had been following me on Twitter at twitter.com/Merlin, MERLYN, you would have seen that last Saturday I was live streaming, and we actually had people from all over the world, Peru and the UK, and I think there was somebody from India there. So they're out there making requests of songs that I sing, and so I get to sing for all the people all around the world. I think it's a lot of fun. If you also follow me on Twitter, you'll catch up with me, or at least you'll know that I'll be in Columbus, Ohio in 2 weeks. I'm there at the Yet Another Pearl Conference North America. I'll be actually teaching a couple of days of Pearl classes there. I think there's still a couple of openings for that at a very cheap rate for normal things. Also, if you're just hanging out in Columbus or nearby, tweet me and we'll hook up. Where are you going to be soon there, Aaron? What's up for you?
Well, I might have to come. I'm based out of Cincinnati, so I may have to come up and see you up in Columbus if I'm around. I've got a trip coming up to Colorado for work, though, so I think we may be crossing paths in the air here. But otherwise, I'm still working on things for some upcoming episodes of The Source, which you can check out at thesourceshow.com or thesourceshow.org. And of course, you can always follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/Aaron Newcomb, facebook.com/Aaron Newcomb. AaronNewcomb.com. Take your pick. You'll find me out there if you just do a Google search.
AaronNewcomb.star, everything, right?
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yep.
So also, I just wanted to cover the upcoming guests. If you go to twit.tv/floss, you'll see a link to our upcoming shows, upcoming places. We've got Matt Ray and Mark Hinkle. Matt Ray and Mark Hinkle. I'm having trouble with last names every time I do this upcoming list. Talking to us next week about Xenos, which is a platform to monitor many systems and send you like SMS alerts when things go wrong and so on. We also have Anthony Bryan of MetaLink, which is a universal UID system, so you can identify resources on the net and how to download them. Michael Iedemia is got an Asterisk-based PBX called Escosia, that sounds closer. Guillermo Amaral is coming to us talking about FLOSS in Mexico, including Mexican open source conferences that are going to be pretty cool. We're planning something special at OSCON, not all in place yet, so I don't want to give it away too much, but a very special co-host and probably a very special live stream. So just stick with us on that one. And again, follow at twit.tv/floss as the link for the upcoming shows. If you want to suggest a show, have the project leader email me. Fastest way to get to the top of the list. Any last things you want to say to our audience, Aaron?
No, that's it. I think I'm good. Just, keep watching. If you like what you see, let us know. And like you say, keep suggesting those topics and have those people contact us. Because there's so much more out there. It's a shame. Every time I get on, I feel like we've only been on for about 10 minutes talking to these folks, and it's already been 45 minutes or something. So there's so much more out there to do. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know. I've got something like 150 names in the list still that I got to cover. I could do Floss daily for the next 45 months and still not cover it all. Pretty crazy how that works. Anyway, so Aaron, thank you again for co-hosting the show. You're in my regular stable now of co-hosts. It took 5 people to fill John O'Bacon's shoes. So you're I don't know, you're the big toe or you the little toe or never mind. Anyway,
I don't want to get into that conversation.
John would suggest probably other body parts, so I'm glad he's not here to suggest that. But on that note, I'm just going to have to say we'll see you next time on Floss Weekly.